participate?
Certainly.
Hi, I'm Violet Ford, Right. We have completed attorney's stamp easement request to bill permits, and you have them. All the files were returned to us, and we have proof. Here are the copies of the permits. The big guy here. There are short stories altogether. I love it at 40 acres and would hate to have to move. Please grant our permits and dismiss case so we can live quietly and in peace. We are not bothering anybody. Remember this, when this is over, we are still aged. Thank you. Right.
Thank you for your comments. And we'll proceed with our agenda. The next item is to review and approve the minutes of July 8th. Those were sent out originally when they were done, and again, just the other day. Thank you, Ed. We'll put that in the notes.
I thought they were quite well done.
Okay. Is that a motion?
Yes, I will make a motion to approve it.
All right, seconded here. Since we have no one on Zoom to ask, I'll just say, are we all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, good. Move on to the next one. Next thing is to review the payment of the bills. And Doug, do you want to take these? Sure. I have an envelope here where I can put the sign wants to look.
Okay. I have payroll warrant first. So for the month of July, there was 3 pay periods because of how the very first day of July fell. So the total payroll warrant is $22,639.07. One payment to Aflac, and then, like I said, other than that, there was 3 pay periods, so it is higher than normal because of that 3 pay period. $22,639.07. So, unless there's any questions.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
And then we have the late July and August warrant. We paid, it was pretty even split as far as the end of August because our July meeting was early, so we had several bills that had came in later in the month. And then everything that was received up until Saturday prior to the meeting. The large item on there is KS State Bank, which is our annual payment for the fire truck, which is in the amount of $28,930.21. And as a reminder of the year, we have $10,000 that comes out of the reserve fund that pays towards that. So the line item budget is the $18,930, and that still has several more years. I think there's $40,000 and growing for interest on that side. Other than that, I don't think anything else out of the ordinary. I did send a detailed report, but so the total for this warrant is $60,728.58.
Doug, I was distracted. ACP International, is that?
Yeah, that is,
Yes.
the one.
Did you talk about that?
I did not bring that one up. I can tell you in 1 second here what it's highway. I believe it was, either shipping or a piece of equipment that Norm had bought and had to have shipped.
Signs.
Oh, okay.
It's
Right.
the sign.
Sorry, that's the signs.
The
Yes,
one,
the
crosswalk?
Yes.
Oh, great.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
Yeah.
In case anybody ever does question, you can look at the detail that Doug sends out.
Right.
But sometimes it's easier to ask.
Right, last month we had the equipment,
Yeah.
which was for the,
Yeah.
If we move this, I'll move it if it hasn't been moved.
don't need it yet.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good enough. All right, so we will move right along then. Alyssa, you are next.
As long as yes.
Hi, Billy, welcome. It's fun watching you. No, please, Billy, you're welcome to as well. Even though it's very fun watching you maneuver that boat. If you haven't seen Billy maneuver that boat, it's quite a thing. Amongst other things, Billy is the driver of the We Do boat.
What's it called?
The We Do, that's the company name. We Do. It's a We Do We boat.
Right, so
It's like-
references its occupation.
Yes, exactly. Well, one of many occupations.
We do.
We do.
Well, no, I mean,
Yes, the boat itself, it's a brilliant name, to tell you the truth.
Is coming in.
Okay, so I brought a little show and tell, because I think it's just relevant, even though we're here to ask for, a one-time allocation of money. I think it's always important to use it as an educational opportunity, even though I won't go on for very long. So as you know, Parent Rec is really interested in saving the lake from its demise, which is very much created by this cycle of silt and weeds. It was definitely escalated by the Daly Company, who washed gravel in the Perrin Creek for decades, and that was stopped in the 80s, maybe sometime. But nonetheless, the damage has been done, and we had to do an environmental survey before we were granted our permit, which, as I want to remind people, it took me 15 years to get the state to give us a permit to take weeds out of the lake. When we did the environmental survey, we discovered that the dirt, the substrate under the far end of the lake is basically cement. It's impermeable, and it's definitely...
It's not organic.
It's not organic material, so it's basically added to the problems of the lake.
And pardon me, but is that due to all those years of runoff?
It's due to Daly's washing gravel in the lake, in the stream itself, that then rained down. The cement
Is that, I
dust.
wondered what caused cement, so that would be it, thank you.
Yeah, so it's kind of hardened on the bottom there.
Kind of a concretion.
Yes, exactly. So, Billy ran the boat last year, for about 60 hours or so.
60 hours.
And this year, I mean, I think you all know that we've, in a difficult financial situation right now, and have, are very limited in the amount of hours that we can pay Billy, and, Billy has run the boat. And Billy has worked 30 hours so far. Why don't you talk about what you've seen in the weeds between the 2 years?
Yeah.
Just briefly.
Here's ballpark at the same time frame, but give or take a little bit, that last year the lake was almost a solid mat from the down to about the center part of the lake. People were actually getting stuck in their kayaks and canoes going around there. And by the end of the season last year,
Sorry, you say down to from where?
about half of the lake.
From the net.
inlet-
From the end.
About half of the lake, I would say, was in solid mat. And I was able to get good progress on it. We were allowed to take 7 acres out, so not having a GPS to figure out exactly what 7 acres was. I'd made a pretty good stab at it, made a pretty good opening, and then this year, I'd have less of a solid mat and more of floating patches, and I guess long and short is I think I've made some progress, whether this is something that as we go along, whether it's like brush hogging the field, that eventually you can turn it into, a manageable thing, or whether this year is some, we're just lucky that this year we don't have as many weeds, but that's my observation from running it this year. And what I'm doing is taking the weeds out. I've got my tractor there with the bucket, and I go down the boat launch, hang the bucket into the lake, take the weeds from the bucket on the boat, the bucket on the tractor. 2 boat loads goes into 1 tractor load, and I take them down to the town boneyard and dump them there and repeat. So that's how it's going.
The village has been really supportive. I mean, Norm helps out, so we're just sort of saying that if we could request some funds from the village for this summer, it would be incredibly helpful. Billy would like to do a few more hours. People are getting stuck in the weeds. I mean, as you know, we're in a weird place in terms of our ability to promote swimming, but on the other hand, people swim in that lake,
Yes.
whatever we do, and boat in that lake, and fish in that lake. And so in addition to just saying that we hope that you will give us some additional funds this year, we're also planning to hold some kind of a summit with 3 towns, representatives from 3 towns, and some environmental folks and people who also know about the weeding process, to try to create a plan moving forward. The weed boat company has basically given us, and others have given us the impression that the more you weed, the better the quality of the water will be, the healthier the fish will be, and as time goes on, it won't be as big, it won't look like that anymore. But the other thing, as we all know, long-term, we do have to think about the lake under much bigger conditions, like what are we gonna do? Are we letting it go back to a swamp? Are we doing something more? Are we trying to do something that's more interventionist, which obviously isn't completely up to us?
So how much is it you're asking for?
Well,
How many hours?
well, Billy's worked 30, he'll probably work another
20 or so.
20 or so. So our total cost will be $2,500. And I was gonna ask for $1,000, but of course, if you want to give us some from me.
Where will we get?
So I have two thoughts on this. One, I would say I would request no vote until after we discuss the tax rates, because the second thing that I would bring up, the issue with the village from the months of July to October, we're in our new fiscal year,
Right,
and we virtually have no income until October,
right.
because taxes don't
Yeah,
begin.
come in and.
So
Right,
we run razor thin
right,
from
now.
end of June through,
Yeah.
you know, we kind of try to make sure that we can get
Yeah.
until the tax
Sure.
collection starts to come in. And we do have a couple of highway projects that carried over. We don't know how much those are going to be.
Yeah.
So I would say, let's have our conversation about the tax rate and
Yeah.
those types of things. And then go from there, and maybe even might want to suggest too, we might want to wait until Norman's back from vacation, see if he has an idea of when those projects are gonna go.
I can tell you some of that.
Okay. So that would be my suggestion, is if you're going to take a vote, I would say wait until after we talk about
Okay,
tax rate and things.
Let's throw something out there.
Sure.
From my end of I understand your financial position of the budget and the cycle. I can sit on my end of the deal. You know, if there's a check coming in October, November, whenever the money comes around, but it still has to get done. So I can wait on my paycheck.
No, but we have to pay you. See,
Right, I
We
can't
have to
say that,
pay Billy.
the parent rec is
Yeah.
asking for additional funds above and beyond what the budget has already been approved.
yeah,
And we put those on a payment schedule, and most of those don't start paying out till October, November.
Understood. And
For
you,
that exact
we
reason.
have to pay him because he has to be on our workers' comp to be able to be
That makes
covered.
sense.
So, but we can sustain ourselves, you know, it's not like that nip and tuck. So
Yeah.
if there's a lag in getting some money, that will be okay for us. We can
You
make
can
that.
borrow from other
We
things.
can borrow from Peter to pay Paul. Okay.
You're not.
Aside from your,
insurance,
labor, what
Yeah.
is the operating expense? In other words, is it tiny compared to Bill, or is it huge compared to?
Operating expense of.
In other
We have
words,
the insurance on the
insurance,
Oh, the insurance
Does
is
it-
$2,600.
it's used fuel, right?
Yeah, it's diesel fuel. That's of all the expenses, diesel fuel's right at the bottom of that list.
Okay, but there are ongoing
There are maintenance issues.
maintenance, right?
Yeah,
So it's not just
no. it's
going
not-
out and
no.
mowing, there's ongoing
I
costs.
have to maintain the boat, I have to use the tractor to do it, so.
And you're going to.
Pardon me just a moment.
Yeah.
Matthew, are you able to hear this conversation? Okay.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Not on the lake is that we looked at the original blueprint of the lake, and the depth was supposed to be 31 feet at the
Deepest.
deepest, and the boat has a depth finder on it. The deepest spots that I can find are 15 to 16 feet, and most of them are more in the 8 to 10 foot range. And in the top third of the lake, is maybe knee deep.
Wow.
Over by the neck where the river
Yeah.
comes in, it's 6 inches deep.
Yeah.
It's,
The paddle.
you cannot, yeah, it's like a
The
gun
paddle.
or something, yeah, a pirogue, or whatever those boats are, yeah.
Okay.
So, okay, so we appreciate your time.
I would like to make one comment.
Yes, yes,
I think this is really good. I would vote for it if Doug
Yeah.
can find
Well,
out where
let's-
to get it.
right.
But I think in your earlier remarks, you talked about what it was like last year and what it was like this year. It might be a good idea to keep a sense of, what it's like, because if you're applying for
Yeah, I think we should find
other
it.
agents who,
Find a drone and get it like that, yeah.
you can say, yeah, here are
Yeah.
records, just,
Right.
What I am doing is I keep, for the state, I have to record how many loads I take out each day and where in
Okay,
the lake I'm taking them, so we
Oh,
do
so
have
you
somewhat
do
of a
have
record of,
Oh,
I
that's
keep a
good.
daily log of how many loads I get out.
And then you can
Approximate location.
compare,
Like last year, this
2024, when you,
Exactly.
2030,
Right.
you can look back at all the records.
Yep.
Yeah, so that'll give you some really good indication.
I would like to get Matthew, since Matthew did join the conversation here later. Did you have any questions before they leave?
I have a question.
Okay, hold on, let me get, Matthew, did you say no?
I'm good. I'm supportive of
Okay.
this. If possible.
Okay, Robert has a question, Robert Novak. Yes,
Yes, I'm just wondering, we had problems with our water in North Bennington because of the factory, but I used to call it Polyggraphic, and the same thing, Music Falls. And these companies that are responsible for this, they're paying for whatever it is, some kind of retribution. Has anybody approached Daily for helping pay for this, since they're the cause of it? Has that been done?
I wrote a letter years ago, but I think you also know that Daly's been bought by Peckham, which is a multinational corporation, and I was unable to find my way to the right person, but I personally think it's worth trying that, but I think the lawyer needs to be brought into the conversation to do that. But I do think that they should pay some money, especially if we have a plan in place of how to do some remediation.
Representative Greer, did you have a comment on this? Okay, just listening.
Well,
Kim, did you have a comment? No. Great,
One more.
well, go ahead, somebody was saying something.
Yeah, one more thing, the cement that's on the bottom up at the top of the lake, can that be broken up and carted out?
Well, I just have to remind everybody that the state controls every single thing that happens in that lake. And in order to do anything, including weeding, you need permits, and it's a very long process. So I personally think dredging should happen at some point, which would therefore break that up, but that's a huge,
So let's make that a topic for another
that
day.
will be part of our
Good.
summit, our
Good.
lake summit, which
Excellent.
we'll be having sometime in September, which people from here will be invited to.
Excellent.
Okay,
Thank you.
Yes.
We will let interested listeners know.
thank you very much.
Good
Thanks very much.
input.
Yeah.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, bye, thank you, and we are right on time. We have the pleasure, and the first time, at least in my experience, that we've had our local representative come to a trustee meeting and inform us and the citizens as to what is being worked on. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yes.
I was gonna say, during session, I tend to go to the Bennington Select Board
Yeah.
meetings to present because it's on Monday night, but
Yeah.
I know you all usually have yours on Tuesday night.
Yeah.
So that's why I haven't come during session. Otherwise, I would be here every time, or most times.
But thank you for that, and I will say I did have the pleasure of listening to Will on another update he did, and I learned all kinds of things, so the floor is yours.
So, well, thank you.
Thanks,
And I was gonna say, hopefully everyone can hear me. I'll try and speak up as much as I can. So the two topics that I believe the village wanted me to really come in and discuss was about education and housing, because those were the two big pieces of legislation that came out this session. But maybe just to warm us up, because, legislation can get a little boring, a little in the weeds. But I love that, but not everyone does. I thought I would just highlight a few other bills that we've done and that we passed, either as part of a larger omnibus bill that was focused on different subjects, and and in some cases where it was a separate bill that made it all the way through. One that I kind of want to highlight was that we increased the exemption on Social Security benefits from state income tax. So that'll mean that our senior citizens and anyone that's on Social Security will be able to receive more of that in their pocket and not be taxed as much from the state on that. The other one, which I thought this was probably the best thing that we passed in terms of, dollar for dollar, what we got in terms of value, was we used about $1 million of reserves from the state treasurer's office to eliminate over $100 million of medical debt for Vermonters. I believe the number was about 60,000 people would qualify for that. So if you know someone or you think you might qualify, please share that, reach out to me. I can try and put you in touch with someone that can walk you guys through the process. And then the other one, I think this is a good kind of pivot as we head into education, was a bill about elementary school closure and laying out a more detailed process for if a small school in a rural area is to close, how will that be, how will that process be democratic and take local input and not have the state just come in and make decisions like that would be consequential to communities around the state. So that was separate from the larger education bill. Yeah.
So that's separate from the education law that was passed.
Yes.
It has no set process.
Yeah.
Though the smaller school districts, smaller schools have been asking for a process that guarantees their communities a substantial say.
So I can go back and double check, but I believe H-180 passed on its own. It was not part of H-454. It was its own separate bill that made its way through. So that might be why it wasn't connected with that.
So H-180?
H-180. I can go, and if it got tucked into.
I'll go through it. I'll look it up.
I was gonna say, I trust your judgment too. So yeah, correct me if I'm wrong with that, but I believe we passed that back in March or April.
No, I didn't realize that it passed.
Wow, now I'm gonna double check too if you didn't know that.
Yeah.
But so just going into Act 73, so that was the education bill that H-454 became once the governor signed it. I just want to start by saying that there are a lot of pieces to it. I voted against the bill. A lot of people voted for it. And I think that there's depending on what angle you were looking at and really studying the bill, because it was, several hundreds of pages of legal language that we had to go through. Of course, everyone came to very different opinions, but I think the key takeaway from everything I'm talking about right now is that we still have opportunities along the way to make change and to also stop things from going into place that would harm our community. So let's focus on the two things that the bill has created that's not concrete, but is going to be an advisory capacity as they make decisions over the next year. And I say advisory capacity, they have an official capacity, but what they're doing is making recommendations to the House and the Senate about how to move forward in 26. So the first one is the School District Redistricting Task Force. So they just started meeting, I believe 2 weeks ago. I'm going to try and start making it up to Montpelier to be at those, because as we know with North Bennington Integrated School District, that's going to be a particular hot topic as they start drawing these new districts and these new boundaries. So the two big things with that, one is that there's going to be 3 maps that this task force composes. And kind of a subset of that is that only 1 map is required to take in supervisory union structures as they exist today. North Bennington's a non-operating district, so we fall under that. The reason that worried me when reading that, and it still worries me, is that since they're only required to do 1, what they will probably do based on the composition of this task force as it is right now, we'll draw 3 maps. And we'll most likely only make 1 that has supervisory unions. But what they will do is make a map that is impractical and does not actually make fiscal or any kind of sense in terms of how it's drawn. And it will be such a poor map that we're afraid that won't even be a viable option moving into 26. And they'll move forward with school districts statewide, which would change the way that we structure our schools down here. The other big requirement that they have that worries me from the end of North Bennington is that the new districts or unions, whatever they end up calling them in these maps, are going to have a range of anywhere from a minimum of 4,000 students to upwards of 8,000. Now, the good news is that our area is pretty well consolidated for the most part, and we've scaled pretty well in the past. So I'm hoping that they give us a little grace in realizing that we've kind of met the geographic and economic extents that we can in terms of scale and achieving that. So that was the first group. The second group is the school district voting board working group. This was another part of the bill that I was concerned about, but oh gosh, what was that? Oh, so some of the proposals that we received, they had some maps. Scott administration put some out. I know the Senate put some out. I believe the House even put out a rough proposal of what they want it to look like. And really, what concerns me about the voting wards is that depending on how they design these wards and how people vote and how they get representation, going to drastically change how the money moves to North Bennington into our part of the state. And then it's also just going to have greater dynamics around the whole issue of cost, because I think that was what people generally were talking about last fall, that we're not talking about public schools, independent schools, rural schools, big schools. It was all about cost, and it was about making sure that we could scale and reduce inefficiencies where they existed. So what I'm afraid of with that, with the voting board group, is that based on the maps I've seen, these districts are going to encompass a much larger population than what we currently have here. So we have a lot of local control over our schools. But the way the bill's written, there are no parameters on how that money, once it gets to the district, how it gets distributed to the schools. And what my fear is that Rutland, which is in some of the suggestions could be in the district, and some of these communities up in the mountains that spend a lot more per pupil than we do here in North Bennington and Bennington, that they're going to use that money with the tilt and the balance of power that they could achieve depending on how these wards are designed, that we could actually not gain the money that the foundation formula is saying that we should achieve and that we should receive, and that we're gonna see more inequality than we were projecting through this. So it makes sense on paper that we want every pupil to have roughly the same amount, but it all depends on how those districts can budget that money and whether or not there's parameters on it goes to the school or whether it's just up to the district's discretion. So that's my concern with that one.
That's in the ward making committee?
So what the wards are gonna do is, well, the ward committee, what they're doing is they're designing how we're gonna vote on the representatives. Yeah. So what they could do, so I know our SU has a kind of it has, we have a different design, so we vote, and we have our representatives for all the different towns.
It's a gerrymandered situation.
Right, so that's why I'm concerned how they're gonna gerrymander it this way and how that could lead to some inequalities that
that could lead to inequities.
Yeah, and I've raised that already with that. I don't know if it's with that group or the task force, but I've raised that with people that are in this process right now. And just to let them know, like, this is where I'm concerned it could go to. Another thing just to highlight on Act 73 that was concerning was the class size minimums. It was a very prescriptive part of the bill in terms of, there was no leeway. These minimums were pretty set, especially for small and rural communities that pretty much might just have 1 or 2 classrooms. So that they threw in the word average, thinking that somehow that would make it, better, but it really didn't. Plus, the other thing that they did was they restricted the multi-age classroom, which I personally disagree. They limited it to 2 grades that would be in the same classroom. As we know, with Southshire, Highland Hall, they have sometimes 2, 3 grades all in one classroom, and I don't know how they're going to quantify that when it comes to the state assessing whether they meet that criteria. Let's see. Oh, now the most important part of the tuitioning system, because this is where I'm going to lead you at least with something concrete that is factual. And I've asked AOE, I've asked the people that represent Visa, NEA, all different groups, all different sides. So the way the tuitioning structure is going to change now is not every school can just qualify. You're going to at least have to have 25% of your students as of the previous calendar year for schools to that have to already be tuitioning students in order to be eligible moving forward. What that means is that our 3 major schools in North Bennington that we do tuition to, the Village School, of course, being number 1, and then we have Southshire and Highland Hall, and we have a few others. But of those 3, Highland Hall will not accept tuition dollars starting this coming year. They will grandfather in the people, I don't remember the exact language with it, but they will be grandfathering in kids
Yeah.
that are receiving it right now for a couple of years. Once
So
that
they'll get them through,
is it 40?
well, Highland Hall goes to middle school, but we only pay to 6.
Right. Yeah.
So they would be grandfathered till they're out through 6.
Okay.
And I realize they're not a great system, but they do keep track of their ages. Yes.
So, so that's one thing. Of course, they added in some stuff around education quality standards and making sure that our schools are at least, rising to, and I know that's a very broad term, but that was at least something that we were able to do to try to lessen it from what it could have been. So that was a compromise that I think was worth taking. And then of course, there's going to be a lot of points towards our students. Again, there's a lot of, subject matter that they're going to study with that, and that can determine a lot with how money flows and how that impacts the district. So in terms of Act 73, that's all I have on that. Do you want to?
No, there's one other question.
Yeah.
In that section on tuition in the act that's passed, it says that to receive public tuition, not only do you have to have previously, meaning actually not this year, but the previous year, 25% of your students public tuition, which South Star Village School have, but Highland Hall, I don't think had it anyway. But also, it says, the language to me says that the independent schools have to be located in the district from which the tuitioning students come. And I'm wondering, what district does that mean? Does that,
Yep, so I have an answer for that because that was the exact same question I had. Because of course Highland Hall is not in the North Bennington School District, but Southshire and the Village School are. What it said, so I read it that way, that because Highland Hall was not in North Bennington School District, that it would not qualify.
Right.
What it said though was that it had to be, that the independent school had to be located in a supervisory union that had at least one or more non-operating school district.
Right.
So Highland Hall did not get disqualified for that reason. That's why there's so many moving parts.
That
Yeah.
if there's a supervisory union structure, which is the only way we're going to preserve tuition, then it's the supervisory union that constitutes the district for that purpose.
At least as
That
the way
is
it's written.
understanding.
Yeah,
Okay.
as for right now,
Okay.
what they end up wanting to change, that could completely change, but the way the bill's written right now, that it does not exclude schools that are outside of that non-operating district from accepting.
This is all subject to legislative action.
Yeah. Any more questions? Because I'm.
No, that's excellent. I appreciate I figured that's what it really was going to be, but the way it's written, it doesn't.
It was confusing. Representative Corcoran and I had the same question. I brought it up to him. He said that.
I'm glad both of you questions.
Yes, yeah, and that was clarified, I believe, before the vote took place. Okay, now, so not going to talk all doom and gloom with education. We'll move on to housing because I think that's a little bit more of a fun topic. So we also passed Act 69, or Governor signed Act 69. So what that does is it creates the Community Housing Infrastructure Program, which we're calling CHIP. There's a lot of acronyms with housing, so that kind of irritates me right off the bat. But CHIP is pretty much kind of the successor to TIF, except TIF, which is the tax increment financing that we've allowed municipalities to pursue, is still going to exist. That was actually part of the controversy, was that they thought that they should not both exist together, that we should retire TIF and kind of sunset it, which I do believe we have started doing the sunsetting provision. I don't know if that got passed actually, so don't quote me on that. But they're at least going to coexist right now for a little while. But I think the simplest way, and I had to write this down, but the simplest way to just paraphrase how CHIP's different from TIF and why this was an important shift was that the CHIP program is going to be more focused on financing direct cost of housing infrastructure projects, whereas TIF is more focused on municipalities leveraging dollars for infrastructure projects for public purposes. So yeah, that was kind of the best I could sum it up in as short as possible. But pretty much what TIF would do is it would, they would finance projects within the district that was created, and they would do, public goods, that existed there, and they would improve those so that all the original values of the properties would go up. and then they would get that increment, that portion from that increase in the values to pay back the bonds and what it took to raise that. So essentially lifting up people's property values, but CHIP's now doing that a little bit differently. So the big differences that I want to highlight is one, that unlike TIP, where they would create these districts, CHIP is statewide. So it applies anywhere. You don't have to have a TIP district. You do not need to create a new CHIP district. Wherever you can access dollars for housing development, you can do it. That was pretty controversial because of course there was a lot of people that were concerned about it going in the wrong areas, but I think that was something that I'm glad that we did. There was also the but-for test, which TIP, I got really lost in this whole debate, but TIP never had an exemption to the but-for test. You had to pass the but-for test, which the but-for test is where they'll essentially say, if that project's not going to happen without the dollars going to it, then we're not going to finance it. If you can do it on your own and the project's going to go through anyway, we're not going to help you. We made an exemption with CHIP, which is very important. I wish the exemption was actually higher, but we made an exemption for affordable housing. So if your project's at least 15%, I was wishing it was going to be 50%, but we settled with 15%, then you could receive an exemption from having to pass the but-for test, and you could receive.
Also, you have to prove for affordable housing to be able to qualify for it.
So
How long for affordable housing? So, you know, if a developer does, they come in and they say, okay, 15% of my units are affordable housing. Do they have to prove again in a year, 5 years? Is there no check on it?
I want to say I saw something about 5 years, but they're not quoting on that. There was a lot of 5 years and 10 years that were floated in there. So if there is a checkpoint that they're doing, then it's 5 years. But knowing our legislature, there were plenty of checkpoints they put in that. But so the municipal tax retention, like I was saying, that part that the municipality gets to keep under TIP, it was 85%. Under CHIP, it's going to be 85% as well. And I don't understand where the mechanism exactly. I think this is they're still working this out and what the codes are going to be and how they're going to design it now that it's law. But you're going to have the option, it seems, to scale it up to 100%. So this would create an even bigger incentive for municipalities to want to allow that increment for the CHIP to exist in their community. In total, this was also another point of contention, was about how much we would set the cap at against the education fund. Originally, that was going to be $40 million. People thought that was not enough. They increased it to $200 million, and that sounds like a lot. Everyone in the Joint Fiscal Office pretty much said that we're probably not even going to hit that $200 million mark. But if we were to go full gangbusters and people start building out the wazoo, the most it would impact our property tax rates, or the rate in general, would be 4 cents, which for over 10 years, and I think that's pretty good for right now, considering how bad our housing crisis has gotten and how we do need to be building more housing. So I think that was something worth negotiating, increasing that cap and doing that so that we can support a little bit more development. So any questions on housing and how that might impact the village that I can go back and get more answers on? I'm seeing some looks.
I have to digest it. It's
Okay.
yes, go, because I'm hearing, but I'm not visualizing.
Oh, okay, yep.
Does this mean there will be grants available for accessory dwelling units for making places livable, things like that?
Yep, there's ADUs that are part of the bill. I want to say it's up to 30,000 or 50,000. I forget what the limit was on that, but that was an extension of a previous program that helped with ADUs.
So the NeighborWorks for like 2023 had NeighborWorks, and they were getting grants for that.
Okay. For some reason, I'm picturing a different, again, acronyms with housing. I'm picturing a different acronym, but it's probably related.
So something like CHIP, does an individual say, gee, I'd like to build something on my property? Who do you go to, or is it developers?
It's developers. It's developer. So yeah, there's a whole process to going through the application for it, but it's made much more simple.
So it's kind of, is it helping developers make some money on their?
So
is it helping them make a profit on what they're building?
think yes. I think
Because
so,
who
yeah.
would build without one?
Right, so that's, again, you always have that profit motive
Yeah.
that's built in. I think that's part of the reason why the housing market is stalled the way it is. I remember last year I talked very openly about how the reason the market is where it's at is because there is no profit to be made in a lot of these situations. And so we have to step in and do something to at least, push that demand and supply, around and hopefully get to a sweet spot there. But yeah, there'll be, I'm sure there's profit in that, yeah.
If a homeowner wants to, and they have a garage and they want to fix it up for an apartment, this program would not be for that. It's for more large scale development.
I think going back to the ADU, there's something in there as well for using like reconfiguration, I guess you could call it. I do believe that there is an extension of something. It's not necessarily a new program, but I want to say the limit was you could access some kind of option for that up to like $30,000. Again, going through that application and saying, what's it for, what's it going to be used for,
And is that a grant or a loan?
Loan, it has to be repaid, and that's where the retention factor comes in.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's usually on favorable terms, though.
Yeah.
What's the A in ADU?
Accessory dwelling. Yeah.
So-
I'll be very honest.
Supportive.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'll be very honest, I was less in the housing conversations than I was, because I was in the education one more, just wanting to be there and listen, because I knew that was a topic that more people in our area had more concerns about and how that would get down here. But I tried to go back and forth. Housing was right across from my committee, so I could dash back and forth pretty easily.
So going forward, Will, what can the average citizen do to help get a favorable outcome?
So I think, right, yeah, for education, you mean specifically, yeah. So there are a few groups. I know that there's one Facebook group that I joined. I think it's the Southern Vermont Rural Schools Alliance, or it's affiliated with the broader statewide school alliance.
It's rural schools.
You know about this one,
Right,
you
yeah,
can tell us, okay.
And then, obviously just writing to like Tim and I, and Representative Durfee as well up in Shaftesbury, all of your surrounding reps. That way we're hearing it. And then also telling other people and other parents, but people who put their kids through the school system and explaining how this would dramatically change things. I got a lot of outreach when I sent out my newsletter, which as I opened up my binder printing that off today, I realized I never sent you all from that meeting I was at last, the newsletter. So apologies for that.
No problem.
But when I sent that out, I got a lot of response from people around education. So just keep it coming in. I'm hoping that we can start, I'm hoping that legislators, including myself in this, will put some things out in front porch forum and stuff over the coming months as we approach January, and kind of updates along the way of what the voting awards group's doing and what the redistricting task force is doing.
Okay, so I have a question, because you started out with basically saying that they were going to rig their one SU-based alternative to make it look bad.
Yeah.
That's what you said.
So that's how I've heard from
Perceived.
people. I was gonna say, I
You've heard
perceive it,
okay.
and I've heard it from, I was gonna say, that's something that isn't on the record, but
Yeah.
I'm willing to put it on the record and say, I've heard chatter from people that say, that's gonna be the outcome.
Well,
It may not, they may be very good faith partners, but based on how this all.
I actually sort of agree with you.
Okay.
That could be the likely thing given the people they appointed.
Yes, yeah.
But it seems to me that, for this district, the one we're in, that I live in, we all live in, we have to have a supervisory union, or the district goes away, and that changes the whole way we do education at the K-6 level.
Yeah.
And I don't, as you said, we are not the big spenders in the state, by any means. And we have not lost a budget in, I don't remember when you've lost a budget. And even Bennington has not lost a budget in long. So I think this whole thing has been rigged. Well, I'll say that. I think it's been rigged by certain people who participated in the Act 46 debacle.
Yes.
Along with the governor who jumped in all 4 feet that was, so hands, feet, whatever, he jumped in the fray, and just decided to create a kerfuffle to get things moving.
So if the original intent was to study how low-cost schools are high performers, well, we've got a case study right here. So is that being swept under a rug? Is that being ignored?
Pretty much. I mean, that's my assessment of it. And I actually, there's a quote in the Digger from a few weeks ago. It was about kind of what's expected with Act 73. And now I think I was the only representative that quoted in it, but pretty much where I talked about how, you know, our communities spend lower than the average statewide per pupil amount.
Yeah.
We have really good outcomes at our schools. And I said, you know, this, again, if we were talking about independent schools that had bad quality outcomes, that's a different conversation. But when you have, you know,
I know what the situation is.
it's not the situation. And that to me, that's where I, you know, I felt a lot of passion for that because like I said, we came in there in November being told lower property taxes, reduce spending, you know, put the pressures down. And instead what we did was we went from, you know, making it a battle against cost to just a full-on battle against small schools and independent schools, because essentially I think the legislature sometimes wants to make it look like they've done something. So they'll just do something, even though it's gonna have ramifications down the line. So rather than just sit down and tell people, we didn't get something through on education this year, they rush something through that's gonna have major consequences. So that's unfortunate, yeah.
I definitely appreciate your comments there. I have considerable agreement with your point of view in that respect. I think this is a continuation of the battle that rolled over the education system back in 2014, 15, and ended up without them ever evaluating what they did, which they were legally required to do. And they're firing on all cylinders to move ahead to some finish lines they have in mind, but won't help us because they really don't want to look at data.
Well, thank you. And I was gonna say, I know you and I will talk about it plenty. If anyone else has questions, and also to the Zoom audience, if there's any questions about it, or I can explain something, whether you agree or disagree about it, it does not matter. We can work through it and we can
I would suggest that you know that the Rural Schools Community Alliance, so, you know, if you keep in touch with Margaret McLean or anybody she suggests that you talk to, that would be useful to you and to it. Even though, you know, I know they're not exactly our friends for independent schools, but they realize that we're all in the same boat together at the moment.
Exactly. Yeah.
I appreciate that you're willing to come here. That's
very
gratifying.
Thank you guys.
And your grasp of the details is very.
Yeah, we've had 2 months off too, so that's the other thing. It's like mine's not on my side with this presentation because I'm used to updating it in real time when I go to the select board meetings. But yeah, I'm just gonna sit back here and hear what else goes on.
Thank you.
I should have also said Will Greer, North Bennington resident. There you go.
And what I will do is share your email, your state email with all the trustees and other members of the audience, because Will does put out a newsletter, and we might want to all be on that newsletter.
I'm on that list.
You are, yes. I was, but I didn't get it this time.
Send it all.
The planning commission summarizes it, that excellence should be emulated, not eliminated.
Yes,
The way with words, always. Thank you.
we may have Kim send you that slogan again, so that you can make sure we get that. Yeah. Thank you, Will. I'm up. Highway report, hold on, I've got to get my pages,
Were
because,
there warrants?
No, we
We've
didn't.
already done the one.
I know, did we sign them?
Yes, we should.
Oh,
No, I don't think I did.
No, we haven't
I put them
signed.
in here without signing. We'll give them to you last. Thank you.
Good job, Scott.
Okay, all right.
I just knew I handed them this way, but as far as.
Highway report. Norm and Kyle have been quite busy. He sent me a long list of notes, so I will summarize this and I will also be able to put it down in the minutes, so you don't have to get them all here. So, the crosswalk signals have been finished on Church Street. You saw the bill for that. Several residents have commented favorably on the state of that sidewalk, et cetera. So kudos to Norm and Kyle for getting that done. They also did, painting some road markings. You saw them going around and doing that.
Yes, I saw them do mine.
Yes, and there were also some things, some bills in there for that. On Park Street, we had talked about that a number of times. There has been start and stop on that project. They did quite a lot of work initially removing debris and trees that needed to be done, some ditching, culverts, and there's some more work that will be done on that. Norm is actually, I should have mentioned, he is out of town at a VFW National Convention.
Which is
yes.
annual convention.
Yes, it's quite a high profile thing he does there. Royal Street, I believe Norm mentioned once about the road work that needs to be done on Royal Street. There is an old galvanized pipe culvert that developed a rot hole. That is repaired, but he needs a slip lining that will go through that. He has a quote, but I don't have it, but he did mention it's about $50,000 to do that job. Now, whether that is just the pipe or including all the labor and everything else that goes with it, it is a big job. It is not cheap, but he says it is actually less expensive than digging it up and repairing it. But that slip lining will give us 30 years on that culvert. Where's the next one? Yes. And we'll talk a little bit about that when Doug gets back to the tax rates. Paving projects will not happen until maybe mid-September, maybe a little bit later, because there's some delay, and Norm coordinates with other communities with the paving company so that they're here once and everybody gets a little bit more favorable of a rate. So we're still waiting on that, but it should.
What are we paving?
I don't remember the streets.
I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
didn't mean to put that on.
No, if Norm was here, he'd rattle that right off. But there's 3 places that he's paving. And that was about $100,000 job. We had that quote before. If need be, that can be scaled back, but we're not going to talk about that right now because he's not here to comment on it. In September, Norm and Kyle will start cleaning all the drains. So we'll look forward to that. The speed trailer was repaired. That was a long time project, getting that diagnosed. It had to go back to a manufacturer. They had to get a whole new board that came back in, so Norm had a lot of work to do on that. And that is now on Main Street. Welling Field, we talked about the chain link fence. There is a quote for 600 feet of a 4-foot galvanized chain link fence with 1 12-foot double gate and 1 3-foot walk gate. That is $13,960. Most of that, or all of that, Doug, was coming out of Parks.
Reserve, yeah.
Parks Reserve.
Yeah.
So, in just a minute, let me finish his and then I'll come back to that to ask for a motion to accept that quote and go with that. Norm also asked that if we see or we know of, or anybody in the listening public is pouring bubbles into the fountain please cease and desist, or please kindly, gently, ask folks not to do so, because it is messing up.
Do you want me to put that on Bennington Facebook?
That would probably be helpful, thank you. And I think I covered also, oh, no, one more thing, I forgot one more thing. Norm is getting 4 file cabinets, he's picking them up, I think that was from school.
I'm not sure. Where
Oh, there's 4 file cabinets, used file cabinets, but decent, that he's gonna get. So we are gonna start by using this old office right here as the storage facility for things that of the last couple of years, things that we must keep.
If he needs more, I have a few in the shop.
Okay, we can talk about that then. But yes, but we have to start getting our records in order because.
In one place.
In one place. Now that we've got an audit just about done, Doug can mention that. We need to make sure when the next audit comes, we can go, here they are right here.
Yeah.
And then we will follow the records retention policy and move things from one spot to another and eventually know what we have to keep forever for 5, 10 years, 15 years, and for things that we can discard after the period of time that they are deemed to be held on the records retention policy. So that is
Did
what.
you mean this little office
Yeah,
here?
yeah, we're gonna redo some of that stuff in there and just put some
Good.
file cabinets there.
Mhm.
Long-term storage will go upstairs.
Right,
Um,
good.
is there anything that we should note so that I can ask Norm when he comes back, or are we satisfied with this?
Great.
Good, okay. Then, I would like to entertain a motion for the $13,960 for the chain link fence, so that can get, ordered,
That's about
shipped, and
$22.
Norm felt that was a very fair and good quote from.
Do you know the company?
I don't know.
Okay, just curious.
Yeah.
I have seen, and I'm sure many of you have, chain link fence that's, the metal is green. I don't know whether it's painted or some kind of process, but it looks much nicer than the silver, the galvanized look that you normally see in a chain link fence.
If it's adding thousands of dollars.
Well, I don't
for a
know.
ball field, I'm okay with, but I will ask the question.
I don't know how much, but I can tell you it is significantly more.
Oh,
I
good.
think it's some
Yes.
kind of like polymer coating, like
Yeah.
a.
Yeah, it's not spray paint,
No.
because that wouldn't last,
It's a
right?
whole,
I think-
it's a whole separate
Okay.
process,
All right.
and it is, like I said.
I thought it was blonde.
No.
Are you want silver or green?
No.
Oh, who got the green?
Because one of my neighbors had put part and part, and there's a significant price difference between a regular chain link, like galvanized or whatever, versus those black and greens, because like Tara said, it's not just a spray paint. If you
Yeah.
go to them, it's a whole
Okay.
coating, and it
Alright.
has to be able to withstand the wear and tear, so it doesn't
Sun.
chip and come off
Yeah.
and things like
If it
that.
were something that were right in the middle of Main Street, one thing, but on our ball field, I think.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's
fine.
We'll have them swing for the fences.
I have
that's
The
what I
ball
said.
player.
I have expensive
they say that.
Jack, so
Okay, so,
You need a motion.
I-
I'll move, to approve that fence,
okay,
bid.
I'll second it.
second there. Matthew, did you have any questions on that? No, it's a thumbs up. This is a, formally asking all in favor, aye. Okay, good, thank you. All right, moving right along. Now, we're at the good stuff. Doug, we're back to you.
Okay.
And
So I'll hit the non-tax rate stuff first. I just have a couple of things. Up until yesterday, I had no update on the audit, but I did speak to our auditor yesterday. He gave me a call to give me an update. He did apologize for the delay. I don't want to say the last, because he has to have a few things checked. The main delay right now, so they're doing 2 years of audits for the water department and 2 years of audits for the village simultaneously for us. The village fiscal year is 6/30, the water department is 12/31. the way that the previous auditor was doing the year-end balances is not how this audit company will do it. He didn't want to get into it too, but it has to do with how the year ends go. So he's working on taking those balances apart, and then, because he has to be able to build from the balances at year end for the prior one to go forward. So that's where they are right now. The reason that they are tied together was the way that the previous auditor did them. There was crossover between the two. That will not be happening anymore. There won't be any.
Those standalone.
Correct. It'll be two standalone audits, which it should be. The way that it was done before was, you know, I'm not disparaging who had been doing it for years by any means. But there was a little bit of crossover between the water department and the village, when their finances are completely separate. Although at the end of the day, the water department does fall under the umbrella of the village, which is why it was probably happening.
And when it comes to a single audit, it has to be, because that one time we were subject to a single audit, and maybe again, depending on
Right.
the nature of things.
So that's where it is.
Yeah.
And he said at this point, he doesn't anticipate any problems as far as there was something done wrong or there's anything like that, but it's just taking a little bit longer to get the pieces in place. So that's the update as I have it. He was hoping to call me again on Friday with an update. So if I get something on Friday, I will shoot an email to everybody.
Mhm.
And should just
Thank you.
So that's the audit update. I have West Oil, I've spoken to West Oil for our oil budget for the coming year. The good news is the rate is a little bit lower than it had been. Last year we used right around 4,000 gallons. So she suggested probably 4,100 gallons to kind of be in the same range. So the total rate that is being offered, including the taxes, is 3.105. I would pay that in an 11-month cycle as has been done. So the monthly will be $1,157.32.
What was the rate last year? Do you have that? If it's not right there, don't worry about it.
Take a quick look and see if I have it on the spreadsheet, then I can tell you in just a second. We don't have it right.
Not a problem.
I know it was a little bit higher than that.
Just slightly, okay.
Yeah. So I believe I do need to have a approval for that.
What was it, 11, what was the number?
So monthly is 1157.32. And I did not, when that price came in, I did not bid that out because I think that is a very fair price. I don't
It
think that
sounds,
there's,
yeah,
you know, and
Yeah.
we've been with West for a number of years and they've always delivered promptly and there's been no issues, so.
and that's within the purchase policy requirements anyway, so. So it's 41,000 gallons at 4,100, thank you, at $3.105 per gallon.
Yes,
10.5 per gallon.
yes.
Okay,
Somebody wanna make a motion?
I'll do so. Oh, Ray will do so,
I move.
then I'll second. Questions from you, Matthew?
Nope.
Nope, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good, got it.
Okay, so moving on to the tax rate. So I had sent out the email. I'll go over some of the things that are in the email. So I've gone over everything a few times. I've sat with Mary a few times so we could have a double check and go over things. So the two big items that we want to cover first, number one is the highway. We just talked about the paving project. So a few months ago when Norm brought the paving project, the proposal was part of it would be in fiscal year that just ended and then part of it in fiscal year that is coming. So the $100,000 is basically split between the two fiscal years. And you've done that before when it's a larger project, because otherwise it eats the entire budget of highway projects. So when we break everything down, for the highway budget, if you remember, there was 2 large sidewalk projects that happened, and they happened basically on a wraparound. One was done last summer, which was the first part and the finishing on Bank Street, and then now Norton did Church Street. So while Bank Street was a while ago, that was part of this fiscal year, very beginning of it. So the discussion at that time, and then the discussion when we did the Church Street, was to use a portion of the sidewalk reserve because of the large project size. So with discussion with Mary and to be able to carry money over for approximately half of the paving project, that would require $40,000 to come out of the sidewalk reserve. And as of June, the sidewalk reserve would have been.
Oh, I wrote it on my other note and I didn't bring it with me.
Yes, I think I had the wrong.
Let's see,
Is it in the?
Oh, right here, sorry. 56,495.17. I was looking at the wrong one. So the sidewalk reserve, 56,495. So taking 40,000 out of that to cover majority of the sidewalk projects, not all of it, we'll still need a little over $16,000 in the sidewalk. And as of now, there isn't any major sidewalk projects that are being projected for the coming year.
So we'll build that up and
Right.
then maybe
And that
look
is-
at something on mechanic or
Yep,
something.
and that's
like that.
continued to be funded, going for
Yeah.
this coming year that we're in right now. That reserve is at $8,000, so we'll get another $8,000 in it. The second reserve transfer before we move on is for the ramp work at, Lions Park, which Mark Boudreau discussed. So we did have our first bill for that, in this prior fiscal year, a little over $7,000, which the discussion was to, again, have that be fully funded from the Parks Reserve. So the discussion tonight, the fence at 13,000, this at 7,000, so that's 20,000. The Parks Reserve at the end of fiscal year, June 2025, was a little over 41,000. Still in great shape to be able to finish the Welling Field things and finish because I think we were about 12,000 for the total grant project.
Yes.
So in order to be able to talk about the taxes, I think we need an approval to move the 40,000 from the sidewalk reserve and the 7,000 from the Parks Reserve.
I'm totally in favor of that.
You need a motion?
I think we do because of.
I'll move that.
I'm wondering, would I discover this on the, amount we raised by taxes sheet?
No,
No, it's in my email, in the body.
40,000 by the way.
So 40,000 is being advanced from sidewalk reserve. And that's covering sidewalk projects that were completed in fiscal year 24-25.
and we had always talked about using, but we always said we will wait until this time to determine exactly how
Exactly.
much we needed.
Correct. 7,000, right, which is to cover the first billing, which is, I'm sure, ordering all the ramps and the parts and pieces and everything like that.
And that's an appropriation now, it's not for next year's tax rate.
No, so it's going to create a fund balance that we're gonna carry forward for the sidewalk or for the highway project.
Right.
So that does show on the amount we raised taxes.
398,
Well,
Exactly.
this is here, and then, yeah,
yeah, I got that.
Yes, so that's where it's going to tie in, but I can't talk about this unless I know that that reserve is being approved to be moved.
Okay. Right, so so the expenses you showed was,
Yeah.
that's for next year, that's not for one.
Well,
I'm not
right,
looking at the right page to
It's-
see that number.
it's covering bills that were in fiscal year 24, 25, which is going to then create a positive fund balance, which we are going to use as a carry forward for projects to be completed in 25, 26.
Okay.
And had we done this back when we started the project, it would already be here, we would not be making this motion now.
Okay.
But we all said that we wanna wait
Sure.
to see,
No, I think
do
this
we
is a
need,
very
yes,
smart way to do it.
yes. And we always leave a little bit of the reserve.
Plus, we also
So
know
we
how
can
much
start
the
building
exact.
up.
ballpark is.
Exactly,
Exactly.
that's the reason that this works out.
You know,
nice.
not just the ballpark,
That's
so.
Hmm.
So I made a motion
You
to,
did.
do a second.
Questions from you,
Uh,
Matthew?
okay.
Nope, Matthew's got no questions. That was a second from Ray. All in favor?
Okay. So now with those applied, we have our general expenses that we know from the budget that was approved in March. We have our revenue that is projected again from the budget in March. We now will have a positive fund balance for the highway of a little over 58,000. A small positive fund balance, which is great for the fire, of a little over $1,000, and general and government, a positive fund balance of little over $9,000. So we are proposing a road repair carryover of $50,000, which would go directly to the paving project, which again represents approximately half of the project. And the $9,000 from the general would be a carryover for the depot roof repair, which was budgeted for in
$900.
nine.
We have 6 with another one.
No, that's it.
Oh, no, that's different. I'm gonna put that next.
Yeah.
This is the 9 right here.
Oh,
So the depot roof was not completed mainly because Norm couldn't get the folks to commit to the project. It still will need to be done. He doesn't know if it's gonna be able to be done all in one shot or it's gonna be a piece, here and there. So the projection is the $9,000 carryover and an additional amount approved over budget of $6,000, which would give us $15,000. The remaining, the depot renovation fund is a little over $26,000. So that would bring us to right around if the entire project was completed. So that again would stay on the radar. Norm knows it needs to be done, but he doesn't know if it's going to be able to be done prior to.
And this time last year, we were looking at basically the same scenario where we added money into,
I remember.
and we
yeah.
didn't do it, so that's why it's coming back. And now we're kind of doing it again.
Right. So with those items that I just discussed, that would bring us to the following tax rates. A highway rate of 0.5493, a general of 0.3740, and a fire of 0.1708. The local share, I left the same, that calculation has not been completed yet. So last year was 0.0075, and that had only raised 0.0006 from the prior year. So once everything is finalized with brand lists, education rates, when I get on with Nemrick, usually the second week in September, he'll help me with that final, but it won't be a major change. So all that being said, that would bring us to a budget increase of less than 6% over last year. It would be 5.69, which would be the lowest increase in almost 5 years.
Right.
And it's lower than we had talked about when we did the budget. We were talking about 6.25 was what the projection was. So with the positive fund balances, it worked out nicely and was able to keep that. And then with the local share piece, it still stays under 6 and only goes up to 5.71.
Yeah.
Last I saw, the education rates could be a little bit lower, so that could work in residents' favors.
They should be about 5 to 6 cents.
Right. I don't wanna say that.
But we can't, well, I guess because, yeah,
Right, but yeah, we could be looking at, you know, a little bit more savings, there. So,
so
again,
they may wash out.
right,
And, that's a unique phenomenon.
and the grand list, again, same as last year, it only raised a little over $1,000. I get that from Bennington, they give me the caveat that it's not fully finalized yet, which I understand, so, but it's likely set.
Right.
So do the $100,000 homeowner, whether his tax is gonna be.
They would be per hundred would be 1102, and it would be a $60 increase.
Right, but what would the total bill be for the village? On $100,000 house?
1102.
Oh, 1102.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
1,102
That's
per
a
100,000.
good deal.
So,
So 1102.
looking at, I mean, you can figure that out by looking at the 7 years.
Yeah, just figure that out.
And, if you look back to, there's the rates are at the bottom, really. So back in, I got, sorry, my
Here.
battery is expiring.
Here's the hard copy, you can look at that one.
So,
And just remember, Scott, that's just municipal, that.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Right, okay. I don't want anybody, if anyone's listening, I don't want them to think.
But the only thing we can
That's-
talk about, but the only thing we can talk
Yeah.
about tonight is our municipal bill.
Right,
so,
so the increase per hundred would be
Yeah.
$60.
Yes.
yeah, and, over, it's from 2022, 23, there was a big leap to 23, 24, but then it's the last year and this year it's, down.
So, and I will point, I'll point that out, because you brought it up, that 23, 24 large increase was the major culvert on Overly Road, because we had to front the bill for that and then get reimbursed with the grant money. So, to a certain degree, there's still residual from that coming back through with budgeting, through that.
And I think over the years, we try to be very judicious about what money we ask for. But at the same time, you've gotta get stuff done. And we've got some real infrastructure to show for it. We now have a safe route all around the school that, knock wood, will be here until we're long gone. Where that's going, we've got.
Plus the school crosswalk.
We've got
Excellent.
paving projects that we're now looking to make sure that we can periodically get done. Our culverts and things, we try to do 2 or 3 of those a year. We did not get one of the grants that we were really hoping for this year. So that will delay one project, but at some point, if it needs to get done, it needs to get done. This, I think I will tell you, Doug has put an enormous amount of time into this.
No, we know that.
And we've gone over it in quite a lot of detail several times, so
Yeah.
we've asked ourselves all the kinds of questions that we thought other people would. I think it's a fair request and a fair budget.
So I think unless there's any other questions,
No.
need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Questions from you, Matthew, or shall I ask all in favor?
Sounds very good.
Okay, all in favor? We will sign this, and then Doug, you should keep a signed copy.
Yeah.
We'll actually sign 2 so that I can give one to Lori.
Perfect.
Okay, so let me start this with you guys, and then we'll get back.
And that's all I had, I don't have
Okay.
anything else.
That was.
Doug, it's a little early for budget stuff, but, when budget time comes around, it would be interesting to know what a warning siren would cost for flooding. That might take a bit of research. Who would look into that?
You?
I would say that would have to probably come from, not for flooding, I don't think it would come from.
Well, first responder though.
I mean, if you wanted to talk to Chief Myers to get his opinion as to where it would go, but my guess would be, you know, if it's something that you would want to discuss as a budget item, then, yeah,
How do I find out what the number would be?
I don't really know where you get those or how they're
Well,
operated.
yeah,
I don't
you might-
have any idea.
Research.
Yeah.
You might start as maybe, or
Yeah,
talk to
I
the
would
team,
say-
and see if anybody in the town.
Before I forget.
Yes.
So we can circle back to the parent conversation.
Yes, oh, thank you,
Um,
30,000. That's how much it would cost. Oh,
You looked it up?
Sharon,
Oh, all right. There we go.
Good.
let's stay on focus,
Okay.
please. Yep.
So these would be my two thoughts on the request. My biggest concern, like I said, is this time of the year, we run razor thin. We always have, and there's no other way to get around that. That being said, we obviously have more than $1,000 in our accounts, but to use that from an operating account at this point in time, you know, it does get a little dicey.
A little risky.
My suggestion would be is if the trustees want a favorable vote, I did look and the contingency fund has not been used since I've been the treasurer, which is going on almost 3.5 years now, for almost 4 years. So the contingency fund is a little over 27,000. And that does, a little bit goes into that every year, not a lot, but a little bit. So I would say if the trustees were going to vote for the $1,000, I would say that whoever makes the motion, I would request that they stipulate that it comes out of the contingency fund. Because with not knowing certain things, the paving project being number one, and other things can happen before I start collecting taxes.
Is that what their request was about?
$1,000.
She had said it was, the total cost was 2,500, she
Right.
was asking for 1,000.
Right.
I think the 1,000 is more of a fair number. My comment on the 2,500 is that would be 50% above their allocation. They're allocated at 5,000 for the year.
And,
So if we granted 2,500, you're increasing them by 50%.
and I believe the plan is to go to the other municipalities, so there's no reason for us to take 100%
We
of the
couldn't take
burden.
a stance that makes it easier for other municipalities
To
to
say,
diminish
yes.
their.
Another option is that we approve it and we put it on the schedule of things to be paid, and it is paid in October. And they have to, rob Peter to pay Paul, as Alyssa said. And we just roll with it, and if at the end of the year, we've already run a fund balance this year. We may run a fund balance again next year. $1,000 is not that difficult to make up. While I think it's a brilliant idea to use our contingency, I wouldn't want to have a precedent that the contingency can be used for, well, we just need a little bit more from here or there.
Where would it come from? Would we wait until October?
It just out of our stuff, and it just becomes a trustee
Well, you want
expense.
to, right, because what happens if you have a positive fund balance at the end of the year, even with that, it washes, because
Yeah.
while we break down our budget is approved as a total.
Yeah.
Exactly. We break it down for tracking and things like that, but the way that our budget is approved, it's one number.
Okay,
so it
wouldn't change where we're pulling it from or
No,
whatever.
But we're not paying it out, we're not
We're not.
voting to pay it out now.
No.
So we're going to wait. Right.
That, I don't know what the thought is.
No,
We could vote to pay it out if we use contingency.
yeah,
I
but I take your point. Yeah, it could
contingency
become a slush fund.
Contingency shouldn't be a slush fund. Contingency should be if there is a major problem. If we had a catastrophic event and we had to rush out and buy a large piece of equipment for something, that's what we have that for.
Exactly.
I think that we can wait until October.
Yeah, I think we can approve that we will do it and we pay them in October on the line where we budget for what we pay to, it'll be an overage this year, so be it.
And that's fine,
Yeah.
if that's the route, then
Yeah.
I'm okay with not using
Yeah.
contingency if we're paying in October,
Yeah.
because usually by the last week in September, I at least have some tax
Yes.
checks come in.
Yes.
And then they start to, it increases throughout the month of October.
And you are right, $1,000 may not seem like a whole lot for a municipality, but it is a lot for a little place like us. When you have payroll that doesn't change, when you have large bills for projects that
I'm
don't
going
change.
to, I just want to make a motion. I move that we pay $1,000 at is it the end of October? Meeting.
October warrant.
Our October warrant.
Yeah.
To assist the parent recreations in paying for the services of a mechanic to do all the leading and dealing with the product.
Yeah.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
Now that's all.
now that's all you have. Okay, now we can move on to, you got that, nothing from the fire department, nothing from the water department. DRB,
Yes, we have a meeting next week, August 19th at 7 o'clock. There are 2 issues on the table.
and those 2 issues, I know we could look at the rest.
The 2 issues involve 40 Main Street and 940 Water Street. It's posted,
Yes,
warned,
okay,
and there'll also be a meeting advanced. There will be a meeting on 9/16 here.
okay,
Mark your calendars.
okay. Kim, you wanted to make some comments.
Yes, I would just add that I attended a seminar on the flood hazard district permit, administration. And I wrote a summary for the DRB members. And it's a complicated process that we have. Not necessarily ticked all boxes for previously. And we'll need to do so now. We have new bylaws, and it requires previous involves the state. It's a complicated administration of permitting. They do a 101 course. It's 15 hours long.
Right, yeah.
So are we done with the argument?
We are
Sure.
planning commission.
Okay.
And there is a meeting on August 20th of the planning commission. That will be posted too.
Right, so the planning commission, we are been working on the short-term rental ordinance, and we should be able to, I think we've received our last comments from members, and we should be able to put something before the trustees, hopefully before your next meeting. We're also just beginning a process on unsafe and hazardous building ordinance. These are buildings that are in poor shape, poor enough shape that the demolition should be entertained. And so we'll have an ordinance to deal with that. We have 2 different approaches at the moment, and hopefully we'll come together and consolidate it into something that includes not only building demolition, but trash and garbage and so forth. Meeting with V-Trans has not been scheduled. I've been in touch with Vermont Emergency Management, and they want to work through our EMD. So I'm being sort of asked to step aside, and progress is being made with the chief in that he has transmitted up-to-date information for the use in the emergency action plan. And VTrans is probably just going to sit on their hands for the time being until part 2 of the legislation related to dams is passed next year. They are currently considering hiring or training someone to be a dam monitor, but according to the dam safety program, they've never been approached for that purpose. So there are enforcement provisions in part 1 of the dam safety rulings or legislation, but nobody seems to want to use those. They're waiting for part 2. I'm not sure why. So the trustees could write a letter requesting enforcement of the dam safety rules from the dam safety program, or they could wait until next year when apparently more provisions for enforcement are in place. Emergency power to the village school. I don't know about funding. I assume that because we're in the next fiscal year, that a reserve has been funded for emergency management.
It's on the budget. We won't fund reserves until usually March, April.
So that was the budget, that was not in the budget that ended in June, that is the budget that just started. So yes, technically it is there, but until taxes are collected, et cetera, the actual dollars haven't been set aside. But that said, should an expense come up through this fiscal year that was earmarked for that, we would find a way to fund it.
Well, I don't think we need to force that situation. What we might want to do is, I think the first step is that you need to sign a memorandum of understanding with the Prudential Committee of the school. Because without that, then we don't have an agreement between the two organizations. And I've written one, and the trustees can think about whether or not they wish to pursue that or change it or negotiate it.
Can I give this to you since you do double duty?
Yeah.
And so that would be the necessary first step to the shelter possibility. Second step would be hiring an engineering firm to do construction documents for the connection between the mobile emergency generator and the school building itself.
Right.
And we have a quote for that. It's $5,000 from Engineering Services of Vermont out of Rutland. And we would hold off until the reserve is actually funded and there's money there, and then you can decide whether or not you want to go forward.
And you do need these engineering services before you can do anything.
Well, first we need the memorandum of understanding assuring that we can go forward. And after that, then the first thing you do is the connection point.
So you can't just rely on a contractor to do it right. You need specifications for them to follow.
Oh, absolutely. For insurance purposes. I mean, if you don't have construction documents, then you can't rely on a contractor.
And this first step is just the engineering firm just to go in and assess the situation and say,
No, it's to come out with construction documents.
construction, okay,
So therefore you can go to bid on the actual work.
got it.
I guess I'm a little confused here, because the vote was to start a reserve and we had started with $7,500.
Right,
A reserve typically builds.
right.
So if we're not even funding it yet, and we're already spending $5,000 out of what was approved to be put into a reserve.
We're a long way from spending that money.
No, we're not. He's already got the quotes and he wants to.
Yeah.
If I told him that we funded it, we would be spending $5,000. My question is, if we voted this as a reserve, you probably should have voted this as a line item on a budget, not a reserve.
Okay, well, we talked about it incrementally growing because,
It's not only gonna be this, eventually it would be the equipment.
Right.
yeah, the building, it's just a multi-step process over years. I don't know, I don't know if the term is line item or reserve.
So there's no expected contribution from the school? I haven't read this, so I don't know.
Well,
I hadn't posited that, but I mean, is the school?
I think that's beyond what we can determine
I
today.
think we're going down a rabbit hole
Yeah.
here that's a little
Yeah.
deeper
Yes,
than anybody
so right
thought.
now, step one is this, we can't get to step two without step one.
I'm
That's-
fine with step one,
Yeah.
but, you know, we can talk about.
Yes.
Other steps.
Step one is, and then this may be that the planning commission and the prudential committee meet together and talk about other options, such as joint funding or something like that.
It's fine by me.
Yeah.
I don't even know, based on the educational,
Yeah.
Well,
situation, whether or not
yeah.
that building is even going to be utilized as a school anymore. And therefore, whether or not the Prudential Committee would want to sign
Yeah.
Right.
a member, you know, a commitment
So
to
maybe
money
we
that,
need to- Yeah, anyway, this isn't something that needs to be done tomorrow or next week. It's just as we're thinking ahead of things and keeping track with the intention that was developed numbers of months ago. This is what we would have to do if we were following up on any action.
Right.
Okay.
okay, and moving on to the next topic, annual village block party.
Oh,
Planning Commission, will be attending, on the 29th of September. And the suggestion is that we hand out a 3-question survey to be filled out there. So nothing to be taken home or, you know, nothing complicated, just 3 questions. What do you like about living here? What do you dislike about living here? What would you be willing to do to create the change that you want to see? And I think that will be very interesting for the Planning Commission to see what those
What's
responses
the
are.
date of that block party?
The 29th of September,
I think it's the last Saturday of the month.
and it's at Park McCollum.
Can you read the last question for me?
We can,
What would you be willing to do to create the change you want to see?
and I know that this was a draft that was submitted and given to the planning commission in case the planning commission would like to be part of this and have a table there. But my understanding is that the block party at their next meeting will be revising possibly any of these questions, so they may change. Yeah. They may tweak some language somewhere, they might add a 4th question in there, I don't know. But that was what was submitted as a draft.
What, is there a rough time for this block party?
Yes, you'll see the information go out soon. I think it's 11 to 2 or I don't really know off the top of my head. Well, it's the last Saturday.
It's at 2, right then.
The 29th is a month.
Well,
No, it's not.
No, not?
It can't be.
I'm in the wrong
It's
year.
scheduled that day, and it's a Saturday.
No, 28.
September,
Oh, it's,
yeah.
it's a Monday on this calendar. right?
No,
It's either the 27th or the 28th. It's the last
Okay.
weekend of September.
Okay, I've got the wrong date then.
I might have typed it to you wrong.
It's
for all I
probably-
know.
Yeah,
Probably Sunday the 28th, wouldn't it? No, I don't know.
You know what? They'll send it out. I don't know.
I'm just,
Yeah.
sorry,
But no.
I'm not trying to throw a wrench,
Yeah.
I'm just putting it in my calendar, that's all.
Yeah, yes, and I'm sure that the,
28,
yeah,
12
the,
to 2.
okay, the round table, and they do all the Facebook stuff that I don't do, so,
All right.
all that social media stuff. Thank you. I forgot about mentioning that.
Next, I participated in a listening tour. It was a requirement of Act 181. It's hosted by the University of Vermont, and it's concerning the challenges faced by local municipalities when working with the state. And there was, there have been all over the state, but the one I went to was up in Arlington, and the fellow got an earful. One of the primary issues was something that I guess we don't face. It's called NIMRIC,
Yes.
and
We don't use it for accounting
absolutely
purposes.
hated it. Everyone spoke extremely negatively about it.
The state does not run it.
But we only use them for tax billing, so it's,
I wouldn't even put it in the notes. It's really not. It's not germane.
It's not germane.
Good, great.
There was a lot of complaint about the lack of coordination with funding applications. Everything is competitive and everything is different, and the forms are difficult to find and difficult to fill out, and a lot of complaints about that. A highway inspector was there, and he complained that the V-Trans equipment that's not being used couldn't be used by his local highway department. Thought that was ridiculous. I spoke up and said that I thought that the lack of inclusion of municipalities in legislative development was, a problem, that it was incestuous that the legislature go to the state agencies and nowhere else to formulate their legislation. I mentioned that establishing housing targets without providing any means to meet them is not a reasonable approach to solving the housing crisis. Everyone seemed to praise BCRC, so that was positive. I followed up because education nor emergency management were topics that came up during that hour and a half. So I gave them a couple of paragraphs here saying that essentially what I've said before, that excellence should be emulated, not eliminated, and that homogenization of curriculums is the primary issue for us. They say that this is going to help because team sports will be available outside of school as opposed to kids learning violin right now. So I sent those comments.
Thank you.
And then for emergency management, I gave them 2 examples of our frustration with the state, the Vermont Railway, with propane cars and not listening to us. I think they finally listened to the Federal Railway Administration. I'm guessing that's why we haven't seen propane tanks in the last year. But municipalities are not being listened to. Another arm of the state is V-Trans, and they have not been responsive to us about the maintenance of the dam. And again, I made that very clear.
Thank you. Because there was also the Zoom session that they did. I had sent that to everybody and offered if anybody wanted to, we could do that here. Since I heard from no one, I put it in myself. And so I did attend that and made my own comments to the group there. So I think we were well represented, probably more so by you than me, but I made my concerns noted as well.
Yeah, I really appreciate him doing this because he's a vigorous defender of this.
And much more eloquent than I.
Well, that aside, I'm not saying that's the truth, I'm just saying that he is eloquent and he does stand for
Yes.
this community and makes points that are important.
Well, thank you.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you. Right on track. We have a request from the zoning administrator.
Open in business.
This is under new business. That's the next thing on the agenda. For zoning administrator and the appointment of an acting ZA.
Yeah, I'm making a request for the appointment of an acting zone administrator for personal reasons and intent to curb the animosity and open hostility that myself and my family have endured. Also, I need some help on a short-term basis for an increase in administrative workload. So I would ask that we consider appointing an acting zone.
Matt,
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the last phrase. Only again, what?
The last part is helping with some short-term increase in administrative workload.
Okay.
so Matthew, would you be willing to serve as an acting zoning administrator for the purpose of helping relieve the growing backlog of applications?
Yes, I would.
To do that. Then I nominate Matthew as a acting zoning administrator.
I'll second that.
Seconded there. Questions or concerns or comments? No? All right, all in favor? Aye.
Wait, who you nominated?
I nominated.
Who second?
Ray, second.
Right. And, just for the record, Matthew, you need to get in touch with, Doug and Lori. Matthew needs to go on the payroll for what he will do, and Matthew will bill along with Chris and there will be an increase in cost. But there is also a significant increase in fees right now because of all of these applications that are coming in. So.
Matthew.
Wonderful.
Matt, Lori's on vacation this week, so I'll touch base with her next week, and then one of us will reach out to you. There'll be a few papers that you'll just need to fill out that we have to send to Ashore. So Lori and I will get that part, and then one of us will just meet up with you one day over at the office.
Thanks, Doug.
Thanks.
Okay, then the only other thing, that we have here is, requests had come in for hard copies from a resident, of the new bylaw and the village plan. The village plan is over 100 pages. The bylaw, is over 200 pages. So I went to our public records policy, and it refers to, this is all in your book, and I sent you something of this just recently. It says it refers to the public records policy as published by the Secretary of State. They do have a very comprehensive policy there and listing of charges for public requesting copies. This, I thought, if we followed this, it would really put the cost of such publications and studies out of the reach of most people. And I think it's not our job to try to make money on our copies, but rather to make sure people are informed when they wish to be informed. So I just kind of made a decision loosely based on the records policy from the Secretary of State, and was charging $12.50 for a copy of the village plan and $25 for the new land use ordinance and zoning bylaw. So then I thought, well, I better not do that just by me. So I took our existing public records and copying policy, that was adopted on the 8th of December 2020, and I put 2 small changes in here. Adding under charges, the note, that we could charge a set fee for copies of certain reports or studies as determined by the trustee or by the committee generating such reports or studies. And if you hopefully had a chance to read that, and look at that, and if that is acceptable, do we have a motion to amend this policy?
So moved. I'll second, but
If you didn't get a chance to read it, there it is. And since some of you guys are better writers than I'm totally fine with, suggestions for better wording.
You know, I think Bennington has always charged, like, if people want to go in and get a copy of the bylaws and all that, I think they charge 20, and this was 8 years ago, maybe $25 for the.
Yeah, okay.
So that.
Well, it's a significant, it's a significant number of documents. We do have the copier here. We didn't, according to Doug, when we got this copier, we don't necessarily know exactly what our cost per page of copying
Because
is.
we're on a flat monthly fee, so when
Yeah.
Mary had reached out to Lori and I, we both said, if the policy says to the state, then
Yeah.
that's the best.
Yeah.
And then Mary felt it was high, with I think over $200. I agree that that's too high, so I said, what Mary put in there was, you can determine a fair fee, and based on what Matt is saying, I think, 25 for the larger document, $12.50 for the smaller document seems fair.
And it may be that there are other people that would like to have a copy of the document. I believe Kim had a suggestion that at the round table, he could have a copy of these available, people could thumb through. And if people wanted to purchase them, we could take an order and deliver it to them.
But this is all also accessible digitally.
It is accessible.
And I would try to push that.
And I have, but a lot of people that want to read things, myself included, I like to touch a page and be able to flip back and forth. The person who asked for this wants to, mark a copy.
I guess the only thing that I would be hesitant is to offer them for sale. Because we're not really offering them for sale, we're still having to put work in to do
Right.
this. So if a resident comes to you and says that they wanted this,
We would at least
that's
know
one
that
thing, but
if
to
somebody,
advertise it, at a table, you can purchase this if you'd like.
okay,
I kind of hesitate to say that we're selling those copies.
but, yeah,
Print it
then,
themselves anytime, right?
go ahead, Matthew.
They can print it themselves anytime they'd like from home,
It
right?
is difficult to print, but you could probably,
You just use a polygraph.
yeah.
But it is,
Yeah.
the point is, it is available digitally.
And the number of the copies, as we were going through some of the old records upstairs, there were reports before that had price tags on them. So there must be some precedent that if somebody requested it, I agree. That maybe, and seeming like we're encouraging the sale of them is not right. But if someone did ask, at least we could say, oh, here's the policy, this is the.
Absolutely.
Just the admin fee.
We would have a stack of them that people would be
Right,
writing.
and also, and I would also, say, not even having a sign advertising them for sale, but like, if somebody walks up and says, can I get a copy? Obviously, the first choice would be it's
That's right.
digitally accessible on our website. A number of people may be perfectly happy with that and say,
Yeah.
great, thank you very much.
And
Then if they don't, then
yeah,
you have
and the
the policy.
resident
in
who
place.
asked, that was the first thing,
Yeah.
I directed her there, she looked at it and said that was great, but not really sufficient. There's also a copy in the library that I direct people to.
So-
There is a signature there.
Yep.
So, okay,
Okay, motion carried?
So that's, yes, and that's like 12.5 cents for the 100-page document, a page, and less for the other ones. That's very reasonable.
okay. All right, then we will. Did we call a vote for that?
Yep.
We did,
Yeah, we did.
okay.
All
right. All right, then, it is 5 minutes to 9. There is no other business that I know of. We need an we need a motion to adjourn at 8:54.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Second.
That's always a quick one, all in favor? Why do we even ask that question? All right, thank you all.
That's fair, I have to have